Hey everybody, welcome to Cutting Room Floor. This is
filming?
something that we do every once in a while when Justin calls me on the phone. It's like, hey, there's a lot of the message that I didn't get to talk about. And
Well, it's not a lot, maybe. It's some. There's some.
Yeah.
There's some things I didn't say.
Okay, so you gave a message called The One Where They Made the Cow.
Yeah, you painted a painting
Oh yeah, I did paint a painting.
that, I wonder if
Can we show it?
we could.
Boop. It showed right there.
Bam! Your wife loves that painting.
No, she made me not hang it in the house.
I can see why.
She was like, I just don't want to, like, the painting is about what you talked about, like it's called The Gods We Make, and it's about like making really crummy gods out of our own stuff, and that's why I drew them in little crayon.
Little crayon, little happy, happy golden cow.
Happy golden cow amidst the flames.
Yeah.
But it's because the stuff we make is not as good as the stuff that God has for us.
I like the painting. What's funny is I saw that, and my voice, I think, I have a nasal
Don't
infection.
address it.
No, I have a nasal infection, and I haven't slept in a long time. And so if you're watching the video version of this, I haven't given up on life. I'm not struggling with I'm having a great day. I just sound weird. But no, I saw that painting like a month ago, and I don't know if that's maybe what made me think about this story. Because it was like a one-off message.
I'll take credit.
It was a one-off message. So I was like, why is this in my brain?
Yeah, you also connected it to the movie stuff, the film stuff, and I was wondering if the title of the message, where you were like, the one where they made the cow, was that a Friends reference?
Kind of.
Okay.
Well, I just couldn't think of what to, not because I'm not even a Friends person. Like
I'm not either.
I know that's what the titles of Friends
Okay, cool.
things are, that it's always the one.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, I think what happened was this. I was like,
Explain the context.
Okay, I finished our last series on Romans.
Yep.
Not all of Romans, but we got to where we are in Romans. And Romans is a lot. And so I was like, I can't, I know what the next Romans things is, and
Right.
I'm just like, I just need a few weeks of not Romans. And so I haven't given a purely one-off message in a long time, and it's very comfortable to teach like a series.
Yep.
So at first I was like, ooh, what if I just do a bunch of self-contained stories in the Old Testament? And then that led me to think about your stories video.
Oh,
that you
yeah,
did.
yeah. Okay, I see.
And
the
then I
connections.
decided that maybe I didn't commit.
You didn't commit.
I might
So
do
who
another.
knows?
I might
Who
do another
knows?
self-contained story,
Nice.
or maybe not.
Right.
But I just yeah.
Okay, so
stories.
this one was about the golden calf.
The story of the golden calf.
It's a pretty, it's like simultaneously hilarious and terrifying.
Dude, if you keep reading, and I did not edit it because I just didn't want to get into it all. But like,
it goes downhill.
yeah, like they have to eat the calf. Like it gets
Yeah.
the gold gets ground
They
up.
like grind it up
Like,
and put it in
drink
the water. Drink it, you.
Drink your god, and then a bunch of people die.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's a really intense story. But a lot of the stuff in the Old Testament is, and when you read the Old Testament, people do this really funny thing today where like someone who's like alive right now but has grown up in a different culture, if they have views or opinions that don't line up with ours, we would look at them and we would say to someone else, like, you can't, they just have a different worldview.
Right.
But then if we read stuff in the Old Testament, we're like, that is so offensive. It's like, that was 3,000 years ago in very ancient times that were completely different than today. So it's pretty brutal stuff. But
And
it's a good
so
story.
you wanted to do a cutting room floor because apparently some things didn't make it into the message.
Yeah, and
What
I don't remember.
You don't even
Exactly.
remember what it was.
Well, I think there's things.
Can I re-ask you the question that I asked you before we started filming?
Yeah, you can. I will say the one thing that I know didn't make it in
Okay.
was just a really interesting thought about how, the time of the Israelites, this takes place way before Jesus, right? We're probably 1,500 years before Jesus in that range. And every culture in the world at that time has these idols that they worship. And, they're a lot of times they're like animalistic in nature. You know what I mean? Even by the time you get to Jesus's time, the Roman gods and the Greek gods, they're more humanoid, right? Zeus is like a dude who throws lightning.
Yeah.
But you go to the time of Moses, it's very like what we would just
The
call
sun god, the snake god.
Yes, there's there's a lot of animals, people. Oh,
Dropped your mic.
drop the microphone. I didn't put it in my pocket.
It's called cutting room floor because it's informal.
It is. This is not polished at all. But it's just so interesting because all of these nations would have had this desire to see their God and know what their God looked like. And that's what made the Israelites so weird is they have this, A, they have one God who has one God, and B, they don't even know what he looks like. And all these other nations, we have tons of gods, and here's our jackal god, Anubis, and our falcon god, Ra, and all these animal type things. They have an invisible God. And so that's why it made sense for them to make a golden calf, because they're just doing what they've always seen. But I thought about the fact that even in the times God shows up to the people, and his presence is undeniable, if you were to ask them, well, what does he look like? They still couldn't have answered it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he shows up and it's like a burning bush,
Right.
But then other times it's a pillar of smoke that is leading the people, or a pillar of fire. Sometimes God does show up in human form when he wrestles Jacob. It's definitely gets the picture of like a pre-Jesus Jesus, because he dresses him as Lord and he has authority over him. It's not like an angel. And then in the fiery furnace, the king is like, I see a fourth who appears to be like the son of a god.
Yeah, so there's obviously some manifestation of him that looks like a
person
dude.
form,
Yeah.
but then also it's smoke, fire.
So
it's like
that kind of leads to a question that I have is like, why teach this? And this might be a bigger question, and you can say no. But why teach this to Christians if it's like obviously like a Jewish historical story that informs Jewish stuff? What does this have to do with Jesus, and why is it important for a Christian to know this particular story?
Well, there's definitely been a movement in our like current time in churches where it's this like, should we even talk about the Old Testament? Like, let's just, that's something that gets talked about a lot. But I think that the truth of the matter is, people are people. And when you read the Old Testament, just as much as you're reading about what God does, you're reading about what people do. And so it's like the story of Adam and Eve. It's easy to read that story and be like, what a bunch of idiots. Why did they eat that forbidden fruit? If I were there, if you were there, you would have done the exact same thing because people are people. And so when you read these stories, you see the way that people engage with God. You see some of their missteps, but you also see some of their like, oh wow, that's how you respond to God. And so you learn about yourself. And God is unchanging. The way he interacts with us now is through Jesus and the cross.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it seems like, unlike the Israelites, where they didn't have that image to follow, so to speak, we get that
we have
fulfilled
Jesus.
in Jesus. And now we do have, like, if we're going to choose to follow a cow, like you said, if I don't want to follow a cow, I want to follow Jesus. It's like we actually do. We're not left with that lack that
we don't have
the Jews
you're right.
were.
Yeah, you're right, because our God has come to us. But at the same time, it's so interesting, right? Because when they make the golden calf, they've just seen God show up, I would say as tangibly as any group of people had maybe before Jesus, right? Because at least Jesus is like, you could touch him, poke him, talk to him. But like their manifestations,
they're following a pillar of fire.
It's pretty like it's visible.
Yeah,
it's as tangible as most people. In fact, most people today would probably say, yeah, I have a hard time believing in Jesus, but man, if God could just show up in like a pillar of fire, I'd believe in him, right? And so it's a right on the tail of this really tangible moment. And to me, it's a great example of how we as people have a tendency. Like, I think what hit me, and this isn't an aside, I said it in the message, you would think that those first two commandments that God gives to Moses, don't worship another God, don't make a God, don't make a graven image, that those are like throwaways. Why are they even there?
Right.
They're clearly, what are the likelihood?
It would seem obvious.
They're the first two that get broken.
Yep.
And they're the first two he lists, because maybe the idolatry stuff, the reason it's first on the list is because maybe it's what we have we're the most likely to do.
Yeah.
And so, we have Jesus, but you've seen Jesus get sort of, I call it like giving Jesus a makeover. Like, it's almost like someone takes Jesus and says, hey, Jesus.
Well, you can give any historical figure a makeover to perpetuate whatever you want to believe.
That's true.
Be like, well, the version of insert historical name there would believe this if he were here today. It's like, well, let's actually go back to what we have of his words, of his teaching, of his life.
And so the idea there is we have a tendency to take God and sort of mold God into whatever shape we can, where we don't have a God we have to apologize for. The Israelites would have dealt with a certain amount of shame that they have an invisible God. They don't have statues. All these other people do.
Yeah.
We deal in our culture today in America, we deal sometimes as Christians with a little bit of embarrassment and shame that we have a God that would tell people to do.
We have a God that is visible. You know what I mean? Like we do have a concrate representation of what God is.
Our God might say, this is good, this is right, this is not. And in our culture today, where everyone gets to decide for themselves, so we have the same temptation. Am I going to follow God as he is, or am I going to sort of shape and mold God into my own version of a culturally acceptable, understandable God? That's just a golden calf.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that we also have a God that is willing to meet us on our level. Like, as much as the Israelites screw up, is the bronze serpent after this?
Yeah.
Because that's huge to me, to see how much.
That's one of the stories I thought about telling.
I think you should tell that one.
Okay.
Can I retell it briefly?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's all these snakes, and they're biting,
poisonous snakes,
biting up the Israelites.
Ow!
And they ask for help, and God says, "Make a bronze serpent and raise it up.
Which today is still the symbol you see on
An ambulance. Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
when you look at that bronze serpent, you will be saved. And the people that look at that bronze serpent, they don't die from the poisonous snake bites.
Right.
And so it's cool that we have like a moment like the golden calf where it's
Doesn't
like,
it say God sent the snakes into the camp too?
well, yeah.
I think it does.
mean, you can dive into that if you go.
No,
if
I'm
you
just
go
saying
into
like,
that.
yeah.
But we see this moment where it's like, hey, don't make a representation of me that's like, no, that's not me. I am.
Right.
But they do it anyways. But then God's like, okay, obviously the statue thing is important to them, so I'm going to find a way to relate to them in that statue, and then ultimately relate to them through Jesus.
I mean, because even Jesus, that story is sort of like it's there, and then it almost never, like, I don't even know if it gets referenced again in the entirety of Scripture.
Except for, what's another thing that gets raised up?
I said that Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
But Jesus himself talks about it.
Yep.
Because he says to Nicodemus in John 3, just as the serpent was
Yeah.
raised up, so the Son of Man must be raised up for all. So it's like this story that God puts in there, and he's like, it seems like shows that introduce something and they never go back.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, what'd you guys?
What was that about?
That was like tie that loose end up.
Right, but it's like when you connect it to the golden calf, you're like, these things seem contradictory.
Right,
but it's not. It's got God kind of meeting us on our level, helping us in a way that we couldn't otherwise choose to be helped. But on his own terms.
On his terms. And I think that's the key. Oh, wow.
The light has been...
We are... Zach, what's happened? Is everything okay?
I think this is a signal for us to just...
This is the flashing light. It's enough?
Yeah, so
I think at the end of the day...
We'll just end in the dark.
I think at the end of the day, if anything, maybe gets cut.
When the rubber meets the road, at the end of the
day, when all is said and done, when you're laying on your deathbed, God is God. And our privilege / duty, whatever words you want to use, is not to alter God and mold and shape him into a version of him that we feel more comfortable with. And actually, that's something I see happen constantly. It's happened for generations. That's the whole point. The golden calf story just gets repeated over and over again. We talked about the scientific modern era of the 1950s. I believe in a God who doesn't do miraculous things because people don't like that. If we can be people who just say, you are God.
I'll meet you on your terms.
I'll meet you on your terms. And I lay myself at your feet. Here, I'm yours. You're the potter. I'm the clay. Mold me, make me. This is what I say. That's a song that I sang a lot as a kid. But the point is that it's the reality of it, right?
Yep.
And Jesus does the same thing. He's like, here I am.
Yep.
And accept me, reject me. And a lot of people tried to mold him into some other, like the disciples, like you should be more
light.
Be more violent, go after the Romans.
Come
right?
on, let's cut his ear off.
That's like be like we want you to be,
Yeah.
and instead it's like, oh no, you tell me how you.
If God is real, if God is who He says He is, we got to meet Him on His terms.
Meet him on his terms, and it's good when you do because it actually requires way less of you. And man, I'm so glad that we're not the people who worship that golden cow because that story again.
Don't make cows and follow God.
God does not like cows.
And God doesn't.
Apparently,
Well, He likes cows.
he likes
fine, I
snakes.
think.
Makes the snake. I'm just
Well,
joking.
yeah, I don't know. That's that's another deep
We're
dive.
extrapolating way more, but again, no, it's fun to go into these stories, and there's so much more there than you really often think. So that's why we do deep dives, cutting room floors,
Cutting room floor.
snip, snip,
Snip, snip.
snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Cut there.